Here we go.
All right, Brandon. I had
All
to hit
right.
record before we just carried on chit-chatting about all the other, stuff that and people watching now on YouTube, they're gonna be like, "Oh, not you three guys with the blue blockers." Like,
Who are these psychopaths?
exactly. Oh, they're not gone down that rabbit hole. Oh, what? I love all the rabbit holes. Keep throwing them at me, people. I'm game. All right, Lauren. Okay, so you've got to ask the first question. So fire away. What do you want to know?
What do you do in the Bitcoin space?
So it's funny you should ask that, Lauren, because as we're recording this, I just put my resignation in the TradFi space, working at a commercial bank, handling distressed credits, problem loans, defaulted borrowers, and am going to be making, I put in my 2 weeks yesterday, and I'm going to be making a full-time transition to working with Sovreign. Sovreign without the first E, so Sovreign, and joining the team there. I'm going to be coming on as CEO, handling sort of the day-to-day business operations and looking to the ultimate goal of the company is to educate and to bring Bitcoin into businesses. And my traditional background, traditional finance background, involved working with a lot of medium to small size businesses. And I saw a constant problem with these businesses in that they were generating net income or profits or EBITDA, but it wasn't enough to beat inflation. And so if inflation's running at 8% or don't, during the COVID mania at 25% or whatever the real number was, well, you have to make that much money in net income and cash flow to your bottom line to just break even. And if you can't, eventually your business is going to starve. You can borrow in the interim, you can get government bailouts in the interim, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, when PPP programs are gone, when you can no longer borrow, when you've maxed out borrowing against all your assets or future cash flows of the business, if you're not beating inflation, there's nothing left. There's a lot of business owners that are hurting, and I saw it firsthand watching these people not understand why what they've been doing for 30 years hasn't been working. And it's like, well, maybe you were making 3 to 4 to 5% on your business, and inflation was somewhere in the closer to that range, and you just didn't notice the slow buildup of debt over time. And it's become so accelerated since '08 and even more accelerated in 2020 that it's coming home to roost. And these business owners are seeing the fact that they can't go ahead. They can't raise their prices high enough. They can't pass these costs on to their customer, and they don't know what to do. There is no answer for them. It's almost a feeling of hopelessness. And our goal is to get out, meet these business owners, and start explaining to them that there is hope. There's a way to preserve your capital into the future. Even if you aren't beating inflation today, you can put enough money away today, 4 or 5 years down the road. You going through the appreciation of Bitcoin, that you will be able to weather this storm and sort of be able to work through these problems. So that's what I'm jumping into, and that's the goal of what we're trying to do at Sovereign, to start helping businesses understand this and getting them set up to actually do it themselves. Sorry, that was a bit of a long-winded answer, but
No, it's a good one.
yeah.
All right. So fully answered.
Yeah.
Any follow-up questions?
Oof. Not that I can think of.
Okay.
Do you want to run a business one day, Lauren?
Huh. I used to when I was little, but not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay.
No, no. Seems a little too tough now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is hard, so there's no doubt about that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What was the business you wanted to run?
Wanted to run a cafe when I was little.
Because you
Ah,
loved cakes.
Yeah. And so you made me make you coffee a lot of the time, so
Hmm.
Yeah.
But you've seen your uncle has a coffee shop.
Mm.
Yeah, so you've seen it is actually hard work.
Mm.
Yeah.
So now I'm older. There's gonna be a lot more taxes and like paperwork and
Mm.
So would
good
you
stuff.
would you say that the government regulations and red tape is maybe steering you away from doing that, or
Well, I think it's just part of it. It's just also not really my interest anymore.
Right.
okay, fair enough.
It's definitely I would never open a business.
Mm.
Like, really.
It's
And
hard. It's
and so you take all the risk and then you register
yep.
your business with the government. So basically by doing that, just the fact that you're registering it with them, it becomes their business. You're giving up ownership to it. And then you're completely party to all of the licensing laws
Mm.
that they want to push on you and change at a whim, all of the regulations that they want to push on you and change at a whim, and then you're at the behest of the bank if you've borrowed money from them or need to borrow money, and they're moving parameters all of the time. And in the end, you just become an administrator rather than truly doing what it was that you set out to do in the first place to solve that problem in the marketplace. Yeah, it's man, I couldn't
And then
imagine.
they take yeah, and they take anywhere from 15 to 60% of it, depending on where you're domiciled. It's brutal. It's an unfortunate reality of the current situation we're in, that the government basically gets to extract your innovation, your time and energy from you simply by existing and the threat of violence. I don't know if you've read The Sovereign Individual. I'm sure many
Mhm.
Bitcoiners have, and kind of a staple in the Bitcoiner lineup for books, but they talk a lot about that. And hopefully we're going to start moving away from some of the coercive ability of the nation states, but probably not in my lifetime, but maybe eventually.
Yeah, it's a weird situation because you've got small to medium sized enterprises all over the world. These goods and services that we absolutely rely on, and
Yes.
they are being dictated to push their businesses in a certain way, in a certain manner that completely disrespects their clientele. But it's not them. Like they've just become puppets. Like
Yep.
even the greatest entrepreneurs in air quotes. Musk is a perfect example. He's just a marching boy. He's marching to the beat of somebody else's drum. I mean, he's figured out a way to grift like
Yes.
all of the carbon credits and that complete and utter total sham scam of a financial market. Like, it's unreal.
It Elon has never made money, and his entire business has been figuring out how to get government subsidies. In my opinion, we wouldn't have an electric vehicle market. I don't think they would exist without all these subsidies, and there's just no point for them. We have the infrastructure, the gas cars work fine. I mean, I guess if you enjoy going 0 to 60 in a faster time, maybe they're for you. Maybe it could be a novelty for race car enthusiasts or whatever. But the real price of them should be, I don't know, it's something much higher than it is today. And unfortunately, you and I and the rest of us have to pay for this insanity so that some well-to-do suburban mother can think she's saving the planet. So,
Yeah, it's complete nonsense. Totally.
yeah.
All right. So thank you for your first question.
Thank you for
Thank you,
having me.
Lauren.
Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thanks. You too.
Right. So I did want to ask and get this cleared up about the
Yes.
surname. Any
Indeed.
relation to Mark Karpeles? And if not, do you want to explain, like give the whole backstory as to who he is? And for those that are tuning in now and perhaps might not know the relevance of this question.
Yes. So my last name does not have an accent in it. Mark Karpeles does. It's funny. In 2014, there was an exchange called Mount Gox that was basically the only place you could buy Bitcoin on the internet. You could buy in person, and there were some other spots here and there, but most of the Bitcoin purchasing and selling was going through Mt. Gox. And there's a whole backstory. There was an original founder, I'm forgetting his name, but ultimately it fell into control of a guy named Mark Karpeles. And he is a Frenchman. My last name is Austrian, Austrian-Hungarian from that empire. And I had a bunch of people reaching out to me in 2014 asking me, are you related to this guy, Mark Karpeles? There was a big scam with Bitcoin and all this stuff. I said, no, never heard of the guy. I reached out to my dad. My great uncle, he passed away a couple years ago, but he actually has done extensive amounts of research on the family lineage and where we go back to and everything. And so I reached out and asked if this guy was related to us at all or anything, and it appears just completely coincidental last name with a very unique last name, and that was one of my first introductions actually to Bitcoin. And of course, I didn't buy any, and it took me years later to actually purchase some and figure out what Bitcoin was. But that was one of the first touch points I ever had with Bitcoin. So
Fun story. One of your first touch points was the Mount Gox blow up and his
yes,
involvement with all of that. Yeah.
yes. As I began to start going to meetups and meeting more people, I had a lot of explaining that I wasn't some infiltrating grifter that was here to start a new exchange and not hold all the coins.
So I'm assuming all of that, these questions are going to start again. Now you're going to be, well, like you explained to Lauren, you're out of fiat land. Well done. We need
Yes,
more. We need more plebs doing that.
it's
And
a relief.
yeah, so how did you handle that? Because there's going to be a lot of people in your position that are just sick and tired of sitting in the cubicle. They don't want to do this anymore. Maybe they're a cycle deep. Maybe they're two cycles. And the, what's what's stopping them? And what was stopping you? And what was the final like aha moment? Like, I'm ripping the band-aid off.
So, to be perfectly honest, a significant portion was just financial security. I didn't have it. I had a well-paying job. We have a very low cost of living. I was able to be stacking a lot of sats, and I just, I'm conservative by nature, but at the same time, I used to play poker semi-professionally, and so understand risk tolerance and volatility and all that stuff. But at the same time, in my own life, it was very hard to not know that my financial future was kind of secured. And even as a younger person in my 20s, I just felt I was never going to be able to stop working, that I was totally in the fiat mindset of I'm going to work until I'm 67, and then I'll get my 401k, and I'll just be constantly on this grind and getting on the L here in Chicago and going into the city and working and going back and long days and all that. And I, I just never felt that I would have the financial ability or security to go out and do something on my own, that I would not be able to exit the system because I needed the system. And it was a sad reality. It delayed me starting a family. We just had our first kid here. And the reality is, I probably would have had kids earlier if I felt financially more comfortable, more stable. And I just never did. And I'm just going to be perfectly honest, that was a big part of me leaving was, okay, I've finally gotten to the point where I feel like I have enough of a safety net behind me. And it got to a point, there were a lot of internal issues at the company I was at that they just I didn't have the same autonomy. I didn't have the same respect. I didn't have the same authority. And that combined with just all the lunacy of the last, I mean, since March of 2020, I mean, you can't, you used to be in a corporate environment, I know, so I'm sure you can imagine, but until you're in there going through the COVID lunacy, going through vaccine talk and masks and DEI stuff and trainings, and it's just a nonstop. It's a bureaucracy. These corporations have turned into giant bureaucracies. No one really does anything. It's all kind of just administrative, moving paper around, and it's soul crushing. You're sitting there, you're not adding any value to anything. And the actual part of your job where you are interacting, for me, with businesses or companies that I could actually affect some change, that was just becoming less and less and less of my job. And it was more, go to this training, go to this meeting, here's manage these people to fill out this report and sign this spreadsheet. And I just got to a point where I said, what am I doing here? I started looking to kind of go do something else a couple years ago. Nothing really materialized, and I didn't feel 100% comfortable just sort of dipping out. And finally, I got to a point where I felt good enough about what we had behind us, and was just at a breaking point of it really did get to a point. It was convenient that we did have the financial safety net, but at the same time that it was destroying my life. There was no price worth just having my soul destroyed, and having a kid, and not knowing that I'm not going to be around as much as I want to be, because I'm going to do this sort of shuffling numbers around in a spreadsheet job to appease your point that we were talking about earlier, the regulators. And you're ultimately beholden to someone else. You're not even beholden to the people you work with, or even what your company's trying to do. So sorry, that was a bit of a long-winded answer there.
No, I got plenty more to ask about that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to be thinking, yeah, well, that's great. You've got the job lined up, so you're not really. But were you in the mindset like, I'm going whatever, and this just kind of materialized? And how did you find the role?
Yes. So I actually found the role on bitcoinerjobs.com. I initially agreed to come on as a consultant, just available if my services were needed to step into businesses. I've done a lot of setting people up in my personal life, family, friends, and help them out, and said if educating as well, and said if businesses need this service, I'm available. Feel free to put me on a project. And the reality of the situation is, we started this thing back in November, and I didn't even start it. Our founder, Daniel Frank, and another gentleman, Joe McGee, did most of the legwork to get this thing off the ground. And at the end of the day, we're a startup, and this is an idea that we think is good, is needed, provides a lot of value to medium to small businesses as well as larger businesses. And there is no, I saw the posting on Bitcoiner Jobs, but there is no job. I mean, I'm coming in here to say I'm giving my time, my energy to grow this concept, to grow this idea, to try to bring these businesses in and start helping them get set up, and start letting them understand the problems with the monetary system, and that their business really, unless you're one of these giant companies with massive margins, you're just not going to be able to survive into the future. And there is no, it's on us to make this thing succeed or have it fail. So there wasn't necessarily some nice job I'm going to step into and continue to get a paycheck and all that. This is where we have to make this thing work. And I felt it was time in my life. I think it's time I think right before, hopefully, traditionally, we've had sort of these bull runs hit in the second half of the year after the halving. And hopefully it's great timing. And if not, the long-term thesis is still the same, that there's, as Parker Lewis says, there's too much debt and not enough dollars. They are going to have to introduce liquidity. The markets are screaming right now for liquidity. Trump needs a weaker dollar to do all his stuff. And the cold hard fact is they have to add more dollars to the system to keep it afloat, unless you believe they're going to let the system collapse. I mean, I guess that's an alternative position. And then all of us, if that's the case, then you're just going to have higher purchasing power because you still have a scarcer money. And so at the end of the day, your business is going to need Bitcoin. You're going to have it. And us getting that message out there, it isn't going to change sort of the direction this heads.
Yeah, it's yeah, you're right. There's no doubt that they're going to print. And yeah, Parker, I've had him on the show talking about this, and he's actually just written another piece for those people that are interested in Parker's work about Bitcoin being a commodity and a currency and money.
Great piece.
Yeah, excellent. And very well needed, actually.
Yes, agreed.
Very well needed. So I'm looking forward to digging into that one with him. So yeah, nice shill for Bitcoiner jobs. And for those people that are out there listening to this, you got to follow them because they do get some great posts. And it's not, I've talked about this at length before. You know, getting a job in Bitcoin not anymore. It's not just about software development. There's something for everybody out there and your skill set. And to reiterate what Jeff Booth said, he certainly said this on stage in Madeira, but I've heard him say it a few other times as well. For him, he suddenly realized, because he started his hedge fund, but he was still sitting on the boards of other companies in the fiat system. And as low touch work as that was, he realized his energy is being misdirected. So he just stepped away from it all completely, just got off all of the boards and just completely focused on this system, Bitcoin. And, there is something to be said for, mining fiat to stack sats. But all the time that you're mining fiat, you got to understand, like, your energy is being sapped by that system. You are, you're being bled dry. And there's so much that you could be doing on the other side of the tracks.
There's no doubt about that. And I was honestly searching for something to do for a while, and it's unfortunate. It's so hard as we live in this transitional period from this old system to the new system. You really, unfortunately, do have to interact with the old system. We all try to minimize it as much as we can. Companies like Strike are coming out with options to pay your bills in Bitcoin. And so stuff is being built out there, and it really is just unfortunate. And it is how early we are that we still have to interact with this old system. I mean, short of becoming a homesteader or some sort of prophetic monk or something living in a cave, it just to be a part of civilization, which humanity really wants to do and individuals want to do, to interact with others, to be part of whatever city you live in, whatever community you live in. It requires some sort of interaction with the system, and it just sucks. And it's a brutal balance I think we all struggle with and try to figure out what is the best way. How can I maximize giving my time to something I want to contribute to? And it's not to say that every single job in the fiat world is negative or is not adding value, is not moving society forward. It's just, what are you doing in that world? And to your point, finding something like Bitcoiner jobs where I was able to go on there and say, I basically do consulting for a living. I'm kind of an internal consultant, for lack of a better term. And I just saw this opportunity. I said, wow, this is perfect. I had reached out to a bunch of other companies, didn't work out. And this just seemed like a perfect opportunity, a perfect fit. And it all kind of came together at once. And to your point, yeah, follow Bitcoiner Jobs, go on their website, check it out. There's options out there. Just keep going. And the other thing I know you talk about a lot, Princey, is get out to these conferences, start meeting people. And yes, you're going to have to pay some Bitcoin you could have otherwise put in cold storage to go there, or you might have to buy a burger at lunch or something. But it's so worth getting connected into the community, meeting people, and not only just for potential professional opportunities or anything like that, but just building your conviction and talking with other like-minded people. It's so refreshing. You, you feel rejuvenated after going to one of these conferences and being around people that are like you, and as opposed to just sitting in your room scrolling NOSTR and doom posting or whatever. Being out in the real world, meeting wonderful people. I mean, I can't even explain how wonderful all these Bitcoiners have, going to the Chicago Bit Devs meetups, the amount of people that have just openly helped me and got me set up running my own node, or given me advice on software to get or hardware to get. It's incredible how generous people are, and being able to expose yourself to that and experience that, it almost it restores your faith in humanity. And so being out in the community, constantly looking around for opportunities, just and listen, I was working 50 hours a week, and I kind of just said, what free time do I have? How do I get involved, and what can I do? And a lot of it was on my own dime, and a lot of it was my time. And you just gotta be around people, get out there, and magically the opportunities kind of come to you. So
Yeah, they do. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of these conferences, and why I want people to get out there and have a look at them, and or at least your local meetup. Because if you don't meet these people, you have no idea what you're missing out on. And the opportunities, they just explode. As soon as you lean in, like
yes.
you're rewarded in so many different ways. I mean, not monetarily. What the fiat brain set is, well, if I I'm sure you've been to all the networking events and conferences in your old corporate world, and you walk in and like there's just like the air is sucked out of you, because you just feel everyone's there to network purely for themselves. They're trying to get the next big deal. They're trying to speak to like who they think is the most important person in the room, blah, blah, blah. You don't get that at a Bitcoin conference. You walk in,
No.
and then before you know it, you're randomly stood next to Lynn Alden, and you're like, oh, hi, Lynn. But like, you
Yeah.
know, it's unbelievable. It's such an incredible way for you to, tangibly experience this movement, whatever we want to call it.
And I've made friends I'm going to have for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Met one guy who had a kid 2 weeks later than me, and we're going through this pregnancy and delivery, and we're going through this experience together, and it's just awesome. And he's a great friend. We have similar tastes in music. We've gone to concerts together. There's just countless number of people at the meetups that I'm friends with now, and we hang out
This
outside
this
of
is a this is
meetups.
a
And yeah,
this is a great point. I've had this conversation with Knut Svanholm before. How old are you?
I'm 41.
41, right? Okay. I'm
Yeah.
48. Canute is 48 as well. And I think we were chatting about this about 2 years ago at a conference, after beers in the hotel lobby or something like that. He turned to me and he said, I need to keep pinching myself. I can't believe what's going. All I did was write a few words on a page, and then that became a book. And then before you know it, I'm here and I'm sitting next to you, and like we're friends, but we're friends like, at the age of 48, I didn't think I'd make any more friends in my life. I thought my friends were done, right? And that all came through my schooling, my university, and then my peer group network through my profession. But the friendships I'm making over the last couple of years is redefining friendship. So, yeah, I'm like, mate, I'm with you 100%. Like, this is such a freaking incredible journey.
It's wild, and you have such deep connections with these people, and you know your values are aligned, and there's your values are aligned, but you may disagree on certain things. And that's I've found that my best friendships are people I don't agree with everything on, but our values are aligned. That
Mhm.
we value family, we value being productive in society, and being good to those around you, and treating when you have that core set of values, it almost doesn't even matter what you think about certain issues or directions. There's something so much deeper in your relationship than just sort of talking about, oh, did you see what the red team did or the blue team did or whatever. And it's an enriching experience of life that I really, to your point, I didn't even understand or appreciate until I got older. And I kind of look back at my 20s and my early 30s and just going, what was I doing? I mean, that was so stupid. I was wasting so much time doing so much temporal, stupid stuff and not cultivating these great relationships and really getting what's fulfilling out of life, what matters. And
Yeah.
as many people say, the only thing more scarce than Bitcoin is your time. And to look back and kind of realize you wasted a lot of it is it's a sobering reality. But onward and upward, and maximizing time going forward here. So
And I love the fact as well that you can sit down with a complete stranger from a completely different country in a completely different sector. I never thought for one second I'd ever be having a conversation with Rockstar Dev. I mean, what on earth would I have in common with that guy other than Bitcoin? And we can sit down and learn from each other in so many different things. And this is what I love about like all the rabbit hole stuff, right? Here we are, two guys
yeah,
sitting here with our blue blockers on, right?
daytime blue blockers. So
Yeah.
yeah, even a crazier rabbit hole. Yeah.
What's that? Sorry.
So I said even a crazier rabbit hole, the daytime blue blockers versus the nighttime blue blockers.
Aha. Well, you've got specific daytime blue blockers there.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you've gone even further, a rabbit hole within a rabbit hole. Okay, so all right, well, let's
That
back up. Let's get into this because, all right, and again, I've experienced this. You meet Bitcoiners, and you have vastly different opinions on many things, but you're willing to sit there and chat them out and think, hang on a second, have I been thinking wrong about this whole stuff all the time? And that could be anything from yeah, let's do the two end, flat earthers, all the way to the guys that think that the moon doesn't exist. And I've been tweeting a lot about the geoengineering and the
oh yeah.
chemtrails. And now, like, Jack Cruz comes on, and we're talking about a guy here that's got decades of experience, like doing brain surgery, open brain surgery, telling us about the importance of light and how we are being manipulated by this dirty tech and the flashing blue light and the non-native EMFs and all of that kind of stuff. It blows my mind. I love talking about all of these things. Some hit home, some don't. It just depends where you're naturally drawn. So we're both sitting here with blue blockers on. So clearly something is hitting a nerve with us both. So what started this rabbit hole for you?
So yeah, Jack Cruz did start me on that rabbit hole. I think I listened to him on the Mother Jones pod, or not Mother Jones, Danny Jones. Sorry, I think I heard
Mm.
him on the Danny Jones podcast, and he was talking a lot about light. And I'm going, this is crazy because I was someone who suffered with asthma, allergies, eczema, all this stuff, and it was because I was eating a terrible diet, and it took me about a decade to figure that out on my own. But when I did, I got on the keto diet and basically got myself to a point where I was taking all sorts of pharmaceutical products, inhalers, all sorts of things. It was all just because I was eating garbage, and was able to get that out of my life. And then I slowly cut more and more of the keto part out and kind of got closer and closer to carnivore. And I've just noticed such a profound change in my life. It's inexplicable. I'm stronger and better shape at 41 than I was at 21. And so when I listen to Jack, he's saying, the food people, they're half right. And so I was a little skeptical because I'm sitting there going, man, I lived this life-changing transformation of getting to ketogenic and then a carnivore diet ultimately. How can you be saying that these guys are half right? Because I think they're 100% right. And so I approach it with a little bit of skepticism. But as he started talking through all this stuff and going through, the guy is like an encyclopedia that it's incredible, his recall of dates and information and everything. And he started giving some places to learn more about this, and just hearing him talk over and over again. He did a three-parter, I think it was like 12 or 15 hours with Breedlove, that I had listened to as well. And I just said, you know what, I'm just going to give it a try. He seems all over this. The glasses, I think they're $160. I'm gonna try it. And I ordered them, I got it, and the second I put them on watching TV, I could just feel all the stress and tension in my head just release. It was like pressure between my eyes, on my nose, in my forehead. It was gone. I couldn't believe it. And so it took me just trying it, and then the real world results. Just same thing going to the carnivore diet. Just tried it, and wow, this worked out amazing. And it's fascinating to go back to, there's a whole other conspiracy element of everything, that the government has been doing this research. They've been looking into using these things. I mean, this stuff is all out there. It's the same with the chemtrails. They are openly documenting that they're doing this stuff, working on it, trying to figure out how to manipulate us with it, how to manipulate the weather. I mean, these are truly psychopathic people, and it's all in print. It's all there. You just got to go look at it. So,
Yeah, when he links it all to DARPA and to MK Ultra, and like the idea of blocking the sun, yeah, it's just utter madness that they could even think of this stuff. But that, yep, there it all is. What I was
and
listening to him on Breedlove recently, which is a great rip. God, many hours, and it's dense, but it's really worth listening to.
it
And
is. It is.
the what was one of the truth bombs in that just suddenly landed? Um, remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if there are patents. That was his.
Yes.
I'm like, yes,
Yes.
that's the one liner right there, because all of this stuff has patents. All like LSD, all of this kind of crap, MK Ultra, and like that. The project that was it St. Louis? Where did they drop like LSD? Like they used airplanes and they just buzzed over a
Yeah,
whole
I
city.
think it was St. Louis. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and
They just dosed the
As a
city. Yeah.
Brit, like
Yeah.
we don't know all of this stuff went down, right? I'm learning about this all for the first time because I'm listening to podcasts. I'm like, wait a minute, you guys did what now? Like,
Oh yeah.
what?
Yeah. I mean, the goal is to ultimately control all of us, and they're gonna do whatever they have to do it. And I don't understand why that is such an extreme concept to people that people in power would want control. Just go back to any civilization, the oracles, they were high priestly people. All they were doing was gathering information to influence the outcome of wars and trade routes. And I mean, Venice, they had secret places you could deposit letters to give information to the people in charge so that they could control the outcome of commerce in the city. I I really struggle with why this is such a hard concept for people to grasp. I think it's a huge impediment. I see it in my own family and some circle of friends where they just can't imagine that the people in charge want to remain in charge by controlling you. And I'm unsure why it's so hard. I was driving yesterday or a couple days ago, and I looked up in the sky the exact same day on Saturday, the same temperature, the same sky, everything except in the same plane patterns. I live in Chicago and in a big city, the same, there's planes flying over us every single day. Yet Saturday, there were no white lines across the sky from any of the planes. And magically, Sunday there is.
Mhm.
So if it's water vapor, why isn't it there? And then why does it stick around and float into Michigan, in 24 hours? So I, things like this, it's just those are so things you can observably see in the sky, connecting it back to people in charge wanting to remain in charge by having control of you. I don't understand why this is just so unbelievable to some people.
And then there's reams of patent on that stuff,
Yes.
on the solar radiation modification, or cloud seeding, geoengineering, call it what you will. Uh, Reams and reams and reams of patents for decades, and reiterated time and time again, tested time and time again, funded by the same old people time and time again. And as soon as you just start scratching the surface of it, and like you say, just using your eyes and looking up. So here in the UK, for the last 4 days, we've had clear skies. And it's like, all right, did all the planes stop flying? I think,
Oh.
yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's as if, okay, did I miss like an industrial movement or something? Is there no plane? Like, I have to look up like really, really carefully just to see the plane. There's not even a condensation trail right now.
No.
Like,
Right.
oh, right, yeah, it's March, guys. Yeah, stuff's different in March. Don't forget. Like, there are people out there that want you to believe, that actually need you to believe that you are stupid enough to even ask questions about this in the first place.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of this, and I really think it's a problem with boomers especially, is just they're complete. They've just lived an entire life where they believed all this was true, and they simply cannot. It's like too difficult to accept everything as a lie. But we as Bitcoiners, we have to do that. So I I don't know if I'm sure there is some sort of character trait element to it where Bitcoiners are more prone to, I don't want to say humbling themselves because that sounds unhumble, uh, but just accepting that all the stuff you have been told is totally untrue and reformulating your worldview to accept that. Uh, I'm by no means a psychological expert, but I would love to explore that a little more and maybe talk to someone that has some better experience with that. Why is that? Why is it so difficult to do that? What is it that just makes it impossible for people to say maybe things I've been told aren't true and I need to accept that that's real? It's fascinating to me.
It is. And the people that have perpetrated this over us, they are the master the masters of psyops. They know how to do it, and they get us early, right? They get us very young through the education system, which is like honestly, I think that's the greatest tool for societal control. That and the money printer, obviously.
What?
Go ahead.
No, 100%. I mean, when I started listening to Bitcoin podcasts, you were one of the first ones, and you really inspired me on the homeschooling front. I just said, whatever kids I end up having, they're never getting in the school system. It's never going to happen. So I agreed. The amount of control and power that they have to shape the minds of our kids and get them into the Prussian model of become a good soldier or a good factory worker. I just I made a decision. I just said I'm not gonna subject my kid to that. So
Oh wow, that's amazing to hear. That is amazing
yeah,
to hear. And I hope many other. In fact, I know a lot of Bitcoiners are doing the same thing. They're having babies, and they're like, "No way, man! Like, why would I give my baby
yeah,
across to the state? Like, I've separated money and state. I think I can separate education and state because, especially if you've been through it and you've been unpicking it, and you can now see the glaring psyops and in the US, correct me if I'm wrong, do they still do this to little kids? Do they have them stand up and pledge allegiance to the flag every single morning?
I'm not sure if that's still going on in schools, but it certainly was when I was going. So
That's
yes.
frightening, isn't it? Would you do that en masse, or was that was that a classroom thing? What
Oh
was a
yeah,
day
yeah.
like? Well, like you, so from the age of like 6, 7, this was
Yeah,
happening.
yeah, from probably first grade to eighth grade for sure. I don't recall doing it in high school. I don't think by the time I got to high school we did it. But yeah, first through eighth grade for sure. Yeah. Stand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands. I probably don't remember the rest of it, but yeah.
And that was that in
One
your classrooms, or was that like as an assembly?
No, that was in the classroom. So yeah, first classroom, homeroom, first period, whatever you called it. Yeah, we'd stand up and recite the pledge. So
So thinking about that now, and everything you've learned.
man, this has been one of the tougher ones for me that I've recently dove into, and my grandfather fought in World War II, but realizing just what a load of shit the World War II story is. And, I'm not saying like, oh, Hitler was just a misguided guy who was forced into war and all that, but there is so much more that happened that led up to the war, why it started, Churchill basically refusing to make peace, and all sorts of other things. I mean, this is just scratching the surface. There's 800 of these things that, all we saw growing up was a Band of Brothers and what's the Spielberg movie? I'm trying to blank. It's like one of the greatest movies ever. Trying to blank on it right now.
Saving Private Ryan.
Saving Private Ryan. Thank you.
Right.
And all these movies that are just, all these men are heroes, and I do consider my grandfather a hero, and a lot of these guys just didn't know what they were doing, and they were sold the propaganda, and I believed all the propaganda. And at the end of the day, I guess there is some, if your leaders get your country into a war and you think there's some existential threat to your survival and your culture, and I mean, I get it. At the same time, it's all these wars are just, they're so insane. And I think Safedin's 100% right when he said that we would have never had World War I or World War II without the money printer, without the beginning of the Federal Reserve. um, which another great book, Secrets of the Federal Reserve, that you recommended, that I really enjoyed. I don't think any of that would have happened, and we would have never been in this situation. And having to break that entire worldview apart and just understand that World War II was not some, great, amazing victory where the good guys' democracy triumphed over some world totalitarian order, that it's a lot more complicated than that, that we probably would have just had some fragmented, a more decentralized world instead of this American hegemony that really developed out of there. We got to set the monetary policy. We forced everyone to use dollars, and we created sort of this one American world that is probably not good for the world, and it's eroding of people's sovereignty, of other nations' abilities to have more control and run the society in the way they want, even though I'm not exactly for, nations running anything. But we've certainly had our foot on a lot of nations' necks as a result of that. And circling around and understanding that, I mean, it's in Hollywood, it's in your textbooks, you're just beaten over the head with it over and over and over and over again. It's almost, you just accept it as a truth. And then to have some sort of polemic argument against it is just, it's eye-opening. And that has been a tough one for me to sort of reconcile with, for sure.
I'm with you, man. Like, yeah, and Safe got me rolling down this rabbit hole too with his opening spiel in the Fiat Standard about how the Bank of England tricked their citizens into going to war in the First World War. It's that's despicable.
It's
Like,
it's it's maddening. Have you seen the movie 1917?
yeah,
Okay. And so you watch a movie like that,
I
or
can't
All
watch them
Quiet on the
anymore.
Western Front, and it just breaks your heart. You're like, oh my gosh, all this stuff that these people had to endure because seven people wanted to print money. And it's like it's so disheartening, and it's gut-wrenching.
Like you, I grew up idolizing these movies. I can't tell you. I mean, I watched the Band of Brothers thing. I loved it. I devoured it. Uh, Even my kids, my son loves watching it. I have to explain to him a lot. Like,
Yeah.
like this is look, what it boils down to is like this is men killing men. Like,
Yes.
we come onto this planet knowing in our heart of hearts that is the literal worst thing any human being could do to another person. Yet we have a business, we have a military complex that is geared to indoctrinating people to forget that most basic primal instinct and train them into killing machines, like to go out and do their dirty work. It's so sick.
And as I was watching those movies growing up, there's always something in the back of your head like, oh, these are dead people. They're never coming back. This, like, okay, these people went out and fought, but they're dead. I mean, there's always that little nagging thing in the back of your head, but you have this sort of cognitive dissonance where it was like, well, we had to do this. This had to happen. Otherwise, all of us would be in the gulag now. And as far as, the irony that the Soviet Union was doing all that stuff, and we still partnered with them, and trying to accept how we could get in bed with someone like Stalin. And I mean, just all of it. But there's that nagging in the back of your head going, we are degrading human life, we are ending human life, and for what? And it's so horrible. But then at the same time, you're like, oh well, you got the Hollywood jingoism, and we're saving the world. And I remember, even when I was, before I had gone down sort of this rabbit hole and exploration of what really happened in World War II, always just having that nagging feeling in the back of my head. So there's something carnal innate in us where we know it's awful, we know it's atrocious, and still we go forward with it.
Mm. I know it is disgusting, and the big one for Brits, trigger warning, is like, yeah, Winston Churchill was a fucker
Yeah,
and
he was.
an absolute villain, a
Yes.
disgusting, despicable man,
Yep.
and should not be praised. Yet here we are. Like everybody here thinks, not everybody. The overriding narrative in the UK is he was a hero. He saved us from our darkest hour. There's statues of that. There's statues of him everywhere. He's on our £5 notes. Like we have a war criminal, a picture and a quote from him on our freaking fiat currency, disgusting, despicable, worthless dog shit money. And people still believe like it's so
Well,
incredibly, like I
we
said,
we have,
they are the master of psyops.
they are. I mean, we have Abraham Lincoln here who destroyed the Constitution, uh, did unspeakable horrors to Southern civilians in the United States, and he's on our $5 bill. So we have that in common. We have crazy psychopath warmongers who are held up in history as these wonderful individuals, and the amount of damage that they did to civil rights, to human life, and and this accepted idea that there was no alternative, that that Lincoln couldn't have figured something out with the South, and the taxes related to cotton in England, ironically, or that Churchill couldn't have made peace. I mean, these people wanted these fights. They wanted to impose their will via violence, and that is period, end of story. And they did it. And because of the result of that, it's almost irrelevant what the result was. They were going to be held up as heroes because they prevailed.
Well, I got sent down the Churchill rabbit hole again because of Safe talking about Israel and Palestine conflict and the Balfour Agreement. So I just wanted to know when that was all like put together, and it turns out it was 1917. And I wanted to know who were the people, who is Balfour, and who else was behind it. And that got me running down the Churchill rabbit hole because he was coming onto the scene just then. So then I'm like, well, okay, where does he come from? Like, what's his family background? So his father was called Randolph Churchill, who, believe it or not, was a philandering drunk that abandoned, his young family just by sending them off to the nearest boarding school, where all of this grooming takes place, by the way, in the UK.
Oh yeah.
Very well known for that. You've got an abandoned child at like an all boys institution, one of the most toxic places you could be. All of that trauma of being abandoned. There's a loveless place, and you're groomed, and they know the kind of person they're looking for. But not only that, Randolph, Churchill's father, become bankrupt, destitute, and was going to lose everything until his good old buddy, Mr. Nathan Rothschild,
Yep.
stepped in to save the day, bailed him out, sent him off to South Africa to run one of their mining operations. Not only that, he became a Freemason right around that point. He was sworn in, and that debt just gets passed down the family line. So Churchill was completely controlled by the Rothschilds. He was placed where he needed to be. Chamberlain didn't want a war. He did not have any interest. And all of a sudden, even though apparently the opinion polls were showing very, very heavily in favor of Chamberlain, guess what? Out you go, Churchill in, let's go to war.
Churchill never did anything to make any money, yet magically he lived in a palatial estate.
I've visited.
Okay, yeah.
It's one of
He
these
never had a
national
job.
trust homes that you can just pay a ticket to go in and visit. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah, there's so much here. And as for
I know
last thing,
you said like 9 things in there that I had a comment that
yeah.
if we were just having a beer or something, I would have a lot more to
So
go on
one
there.
other truth bomb that we could probably drop in here was the the fact that Hitler was being financed, the growth, like his coming to power is being financed by Wall Street
Oh,
directly.
oh,
Brown
yeah,
Brothers
JP.
Harriman, yeah,
Oh,
JP Morgan, Schiff, Kuhn Loeb.
yeah.
Yep.
But Prescott Bush, big in that. Yeah, all funded because they all wanted their war because they got
Hmm.
rich and they had a perfect guy to do their bidding over there and Hitler and that's what I mean. There's just so much more to the World
Hmm.
War II story than just some genocidal maniac went off the handle one day and we were forced into war. I mean, that is just so silly once you start looking into all this. But that, I mean, I believe that for 20 years that this crazy
Hmm.
guy in Germany started started a war and we had to do something about it. But the financing sources behind everything and all at the end of the day, it always comes back to the money. It always comes back to the money.
Yep.
And the central bankers and the city of London and the Rothschilds, the Morgans and all the Warburgs, all our wonderful friends that were involved in the establishment of the Federal Reserve and just nothing has changed on that front. And really, it goes back to 1696 with the founding of the Bank of England. And it's just been 300 plus years of just oppression from these people who, I always find it interesting when they do these Forbes 100 or the world's richest men or Elon Musk is the world. Elon Musk is pocket change to the Rothschilds, to the Warburgs, to their lineage. These people have wealth that I don't know if it's 40% of the world, 30% of the world, but it is something so unfathomable and incalculable. It's laughable that just trillions and trillions of dollars of wealth. It's laughable that Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg get trotted out as the wealthiest people in the world because they own Facebook stock or they own Tesla stock. We have groups of people that literally own the money supply and they're not even mentioned in any of these articles. Why do you think that is?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's so the last one that the last trigger point maybe there's only one person outside of Germany that was ever given like the distinguished Eagle Cross from the Nazi Party or something like that. Do you know who that was?
Was it the British Morgenthau? Is that or
No.
no?
Well, yeah, it's an American guy. Maybe it's the only American, or I'm pretty sure it's the only person outside of Germany. But yeah, American.
I was it was I it's coming to me. I forget who it is, like a Treasury Secretary or something like that.
Henry Ford.
Oh, Henry Ford. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
come on, guys.
Yeah.
Like, huh?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, what? Why was Henry Ford so important to the German war machine that he would be, distinguished with this
Yes.
incredible, like, showering of respect?
And another book you had recommended was The Tower of Basel, and that was a
Mm.
great one about how all the funding got into Germany and how they used the international cooperation of all these central banks to basically fund everything in that country.
That one, I tell you what, the Tower of Basel, people, you got to read that. It's great. It's great, and I learned about the again the most disgusting thing, the Nazi war machine invading the Czechoslovakia at that point and going to the national bank, the central bank of
Yep.
Czechoslovakia, and saying, right, where's the gold? We want the gold. Oh, we don't have it. It's at the Bank of England. Okay, call up the Bank of England and have them transfer the ownership of the gold to our account at the Bank of International Settlements, right?
Yep.
What?
Yeah.
Which they did,
Yeah.
which
Which
Montague
they did.
Norman
Yeah.
green flagged. You're like, what? That has to be treason,
Yeah.
surely, right there. That has to be treason from him moving the gold to the, like, as if you didn't know that country had just been invaded. and that
Well, and then
perhaps this phone call was being made at gunpoint.
it will, and the whole uh, supposed ethos of the BIS and everything is, oh, we just allow international trade to go on, except if there's a guy who has a gun to some other country's head, we'll just move their gold. I mean, the whole thing is a total farce. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. So rabbit holes explored.
Oh yeah, man. I could
But
when you were talking about Churchill going to those boarding schools, I don't have you ever heard of a guy named Nick Bryant?
no, I don't think so.
He does a ton of work. He wrote about the Franklin scandal in Nebraska, if you know about that. He wrote a great book on that and all the child trafficking. It's dark, but child trafficking, sex trafficking with minors is the world reserve currency. It's not actually the dollar. Um,
Mm.
and he has done a ton of work on this front. And he was talking with a Scotland Yard investigator who the podcast was like a week or two ago. If people want to check that one out to know what goes on at these boarding schools and how awful these places are, what happens to individuals, and to your point, how they get controlled. They get these kids at a young age, and just the terrible thing they break these people, via sexual abuse and convince them that they're nobodies, and they're basically just soulless zombies from everything that they've had to endure, and make perfect patsies and plans for whatever these people need. So
Well, look at the Prime Minister right now in the United Kingdom,
yeah, oh yeah,
Keir Starmer.
yeah.
There are pictures of him with Jimmy Savile with his hand on his shoulder in his school uniform, whatever the hell that was. Like, dressing children in a full suit and tie is like, I can't believe this still goes on. But
it's
there you have it.
It's funny, yeah, you were talking about learning about stuff that we were doing in America. That was one thing I learned about in the UK. They put some documentary out, and I watched it. I presumed this was kind of common knowledge over there, but being over here, I had no idea, and I just sat there and watched the whole time, going, "How the hell was this allowed to happen?" I mean,
Yeah,
everyone knew. They all knew.
it's shocking. But
It's
nobody, and this is what's sad, right? You walk around and it is as if everybody's sleeping or just resigned, resigned to the fact. Maybe they know, and it's like, oh yeah, whatever. Nothing I can do about it. I've got to be up for work in the morning.
yeah, it's brutal to understand all of these things, and I mean, there are people still I talk to that they're like, "Oh, you think Epstein killed himself or didn't kill himself?" And it's like, how do you guys not understand the depths of depravity and why if we care so much about busting these trafficking rings, and it's just our good old FBI and good old DEA or whatever alphabet soup organization out there working to save kids from these trafficking rings and all that. Why don't they care about this? Why this is a major story. This is one of, I mean, that book I was talking about, the Franklin scandal. Go read that, and you want to talk about FBI cover up, local law enforcement cover up. Why are they covering this up? Why do they not want to save kids? To me, it's like saving kids is the most obvious thing we can all agree on. It's bad. Kids should not be in these situations. Yet, our Justice Department, our law enforcement, we have no interest in digging any of this or bringing it to the attention of the public. Why? Like, just asking that question of why do they not want us to know about that should trigger something in you to start questioning things. But some people just move on and, oh, that would never happen. It's these one-off creepy guys I see documentaries about on Netflix, and they live in a cabin in the woods and lure kids out there. It's like, no, this is so connected. It goes so back. And I think it was the octopus murders. I'm not sure if that was the case of this journalist who was doggedly going after these sex rings, and magically he ended up, suicided in his hotel room. So, why does this keep going on? Why do we never get anywhere with any of this stuff? There's never any investigations. Nothing's uncovered. No one's punished. We can't even figure out who's involved with Epstein and Ghislaine. How? How is this happening?
Hmm. I saw, and this still might be the case, but that black book of his was just going to auction.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Well,
So,
yeah.
so like surely the most implicated billionaire, trillionaire, whatever, is going to end up buying that, right, through a pseudonym, and probably keeping it for themselves because that is the ultimate blackmail, like right there in their hands. How is that not being leafed through? And
where are the resources? What are we doing on this? It's nothing. It's actively ignored. There's activist DAs and prosecutors who take these cases to make them go away. I mean, the whole thing with Epstein and Bill Barr down in Florida, and it's they just disappear these cases. They actively get involved to make them go away when they should be being pursued, and we should be, catching all these people and figuring out where all the money's coming from, since we have all these money laundering protections. Shouldn't we know how they're getting their money? And
oh no, that's just in place to catch you, my friend.
Exactly. Oh, that's in place to make sure you and I don't start an operation.
Oh, you must have been in the thick of it. You still got a couple of weeks left, right? I think you said.
I do, yeah.
So being in the thick of AML and KYC, I remember that stuff was really starting to creep in. I left my corporate hell back in 2012, but we were subjected to sitting through. They were like click box kind of, almost like quizzes. This was like, you've got to go through, you've got to pass this test to keep your job, basically.
We every quarter we got 10 of those we have to go through. So
right.
Yeah.
So they've got worse. But I remember thinking, like, what is a bribe? And it gives you like 3 or 4 definitions, and it's like accepting something in kind for a promise of business, in the future. And I'm like, what, like every single client dinner, every single golf day, every single networking event with the cocktails and whatever else?
Yep.
So is that bribery then? Because to me, that's bribery. But I know I can't click that. I've got to click that. So like this is just complete and utter shambles. And we were, believe it or not, I used to work for Lutnick's firm, BGC Partners.
Okay.
Not a good dude, by the way. And
shocking.
Yeah. And like we were at the worst point when I just completely I cannot be part of this anymore, was when the Singapore Grand Prix rolled into town, and our direct manager, he'd just buy like 25 Paddock Club tickets on the company money.
Yeah, right? Of course.
And then hang them over your head. Right? If you want to invite your client, you've got to get more business out of him. It's like, right, let me get this right. You want me to bribe my client to give us more business so I can give him this ticket? Like, what are we doing? Like, this is ridiculous.
You'll be happy to know absolutely nothing's changed. So I remember when all those regulations started. I really got my teeth cut during the GFC, and that's really kind of, I would say, was the first step in my journey of just understanding what a total sham of a system we were involved in. I was just sitting around, I was 24 at the time, something like that. And I'm sitting there going, where did this money come from? How, TARP, bailout? Where is it? Do we just have this in our treasury somewhere? No, we made it up. We just increased the amount of money. I think at the time it was like a pittance of $1 trillion. Now that's like Tuesday's budget in this country. Um, and all of these regulations starting to pour in, and all of this Dodd-Frank and all the KYC, AML, and it really did change the industry a lot. The amount of compliant, and people think that somehow it was some unregulated market that led to all of this. And oh, if we just had more restrictions in place, it would have fixed this. No, you have a fundamentally broken system that you can never put enough guardrails into to protect people from over leveraging if they're using fractional reserve lending. It's the system will always break. It has to, because it's not real. It's not grounded in reality. It's a total sham and farce of a system that will always break. And you adding all these regulations just punishes everyday people, builds bigger moats for the bigger banks. And what's happened since 08, 09? Consolidate, 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 consolidate. And I'm sure in 10 to 20 years, there's going to be 5 banks left. And that'll be as we're getting towards the real end of the fiat system. Because everything, as Jeff Booth, you mentioned earlier, says everything has to centralize. It has to in this system, and it's accelerated from '08 until now, just leaps and bounds. So be glad you're out. I know you are.
Yeah, and I remember
Yeah.
sitting at my desk '08, yeah, the same as you, and just like the questions swirling around in my mind, like, did this, huh? So what now?
I remember I was doing some work for a guy who was selling CMBS paper, which is commercial mortgage-backed securities. And so the underwriting on these things was insane. I mean, they wouldn't even have one-to-one debt service coverage. The thing couldn't even cash flow on its own. They're like, well, it's going to appreciate in 5 years. It'll be worth more. It always does. And then we'll just refinance it. And the rents will go up. And then in 10 years, they'll be able to afford this. And I mean, I remember going in, there was a guy I was working with, working under, doing some analyst work for him, and he had 11 deals on a whiteboard. This one's with JP Morgan, this one's with Citibank, this one's with WAMU back when WAMU existed, all the way down. And I just remember coming in one day in August, like '07, and he just took an eraser and took every single one off the board. He goes, there's no market. There's no one buying any of this. We can't get a single deal done. Um, and I was sitting there going, how does that happen? How is this possible? And I never really fully understood it until a few years later, but I'll never forget that moment. Just every single thing we were working on was just taken off the board, literally.
What's your take on The Big Short, the movie?
So I think The Big Short is directionally, I think there's a lot of, as Jack Cruz likes to say, I think there's a lot of half truths in there. And I think they got the concept of people realizing that there was an imbalance in this market. But to me, there were so many factors that went into the crisis to point to just one thing. There's the famous scene of the stripper just she's like, no, they just gave me the home, or I forget exactly how it goes, but there was an insatiable demand from Fannie and Freddie to buy this paper. So you had to get them this paper as a financial institution. So if Fannie and Freddie are buying it, why wouldn't you get it to them? So they're creating money out of thin air to buy this stuff. More money enters the system, it increases the housing supply. So it was, and people wanted this. Let's be honest. At the end of the day, like, yes, people lost their homes, but some people knew they couldn't afford what they were buying, and they got in. They said, oh, you'll let my debt to income ratio be 60% and I still get the home? Awesome, let's do it. So there's blame to place on everyone all the way down the chain. At the end of the day, it always comes back to money printing and the ability for Fannie and Freddie to buy assets out of thin air. So they are kind of without that crux, that focal point, none of the rest of it would have happened. However, everyone else down the chain is complicit. They wanted their now, some people were crushed in the gears unfairly and just tried to do something and maybe, lost a job as a carpenter in the housing industry or something like that, and just unfortunate life circumstances. But my opinion on The Big Short is they got a lot of stuff right, but didn't really address the root problem, which is the ability for the government to make money and buy these assets that created a completely artificial market for loans and housing that would have never existed without it.
And then, so one you've not lived through, but I'm sure you've read about a lot. What were you told about the Wall Street crash of like in 1929, and what do you believe to be true now?
Yeah, that's another one. So that was the classic Wall Street of 29. It was the Great Depression. My grandfather actually lived through it, and when '08 came around, sold everything he had and basically went into cash and put it in his mattress, almost quite literally. Kept it at his house. So he lived through that, and it was, hey, this was just a situation where the economy froze up. There wasn't enough money to go around, and the stock market crashed because people speculated on it and bid up prices and overvalued everything. And then when they went to sell, it just took everything with it and wiped all of this. Um, Wiped all this value off the table, quote unquote value that was inflated. But I was never told anything about the Federal Reserve, the money supply, what it had to do with it. It was always some sort of government spending or taxes, or we just needed policy changes. It was nothing of what the Federal Reserve actually did to increase the money supply, pull out the money supply, bankrupt everyone, and basically buy everything for pennies on the dollar from destitute people. And again, it goes back to
Brandon, I've lost you my end.
Hey, sorry about that, Daniel.
Yeah,
I,
no problem. Right.
I don't know if
Okay.
that was
So
on my end or your end, but
I'm not sure, but we're
uh,
back and it carried on recording. So I'll just
uh,
cut it.
uh,
Yeah, you were just
uh,
saying you got to the end of the story pretty much. You were just saying you're just wrapping it up. Like you were just about to say it's just another case of, and then that's where I
yeah.
lost you.
Yeah, it's just another case of the people being in control of the money, being able to do whatever they want with society and influence the way people buy things and try to store their money and try to find a way just to protect their wealth or even to make money and sending artificial signals to the market about what people really want to invest in, what people want. And I never heard of anything to do with the that the Federal Reserve would have had anything to do with any of this, that them increasing and decreasing the money supply sort of at their whims to bring about what they wanted was how all this happened. It was the animal spirits and the over exuberance and the roaring 20s and all this stuff and these sort of cultural cliches that are really just symptoms of the problem. And that's something that academia and Hollywood, they're really good at ascribing cause to the symptoms. And they make you think that all these things that are actually the result of something else are causing the problem. And I see this in so many people who know something's broken, know things are wrong, know eggs shouldn't be $12 a dozen, and they're just, oh, it's the bird flu, or it's the last administration racked up too much debt. And it's no, it's the ability to print money is the problem of all of this stuff. And it's never explained, it's never acknowledged, and they don't want you to know this. And yeah, so what I was taught about the Great Depression was Coolidge was a bad president, or whatever. It's all nonsense. It was all the ability of manipulating our money supply.
Hmm. And if you,
So
yeah, you had those levers to pull, right? And then you create the hype, and the only way people can believe that they like the FOMO would have been huge if you look
oh
back.
my gosh, yeah, you
Like,
think Bitcoin bull runs are bad? I can't even imagine what
yeah.
1927 was like.
So you corral everybody into the same spot, the stock market, and then you rug pull them so bad. And it was the margin call thing, right? I think, which was the
Yep,
absolute final pull of the rug. It was
yep,
like you had like it was an overnighter, wasn't it? Right, we're changing margin calls overnight, or
yep.
48 hours. I can't remember exactly.
It-
It's
yeah.
unbelievable. It's beyond, again, how people can still trust in any of these regulators, in any of these policymakers, legislators, the people that write the bills, the acts, the policies. Why? What? How are you still trusting? Like, how
What
many times do you need to see this?
what have they protected us from, and when have they worked? They never work. This stuff always happens, and it's this great concept of, well, if they didn't have this, eight more of these would have happened. It's this unfalsifiable uh, belief. It was the same thing with COVID. It was, well, we would have lost more people if we locked down. Like, I can't prove to you that that wouldn't have happened because we don't have that alternative world, but we all know it's horseshit.
Mhm.
And uh, so yeah, the unfalsifiable premise is that's another classic arguing point that the powers that be, the academia, that Hollywood, they have really mastered the ability of you not being able to falsify some of their claims. So, and you, yeah, what are we supposed to? Well, if we didn't have these KYC AML laws, we would have we wouldn't have caught these 8 terrorists or something. I mean, it's all just total rubbish.
And then that leads us to the final point here. So after 1929, you rug pull all of these poor people, your grandfather included, right? Destitute, nothing.
Yep.
You go through 4 years of hell. Then you're gaslit into bringing in a new president that is going to save the day, and he's going to bring these bankers to the table, and he's going to regulate absolutely everything. We'll never have this again. With a flick of a pen, the first thing he does is the Emergency Banking Act, and then he steals your gold. Like, from a nation that was absolutely on its knees, and how anybody can look back at FDR with any kind of respect. You've missed the whole fucking. Here's another guy that was completely complicit.
Yep.
He was completely
Groomed.
totally compromised.
Yep.
A puppet to the masters that be. And for good order, for the conspiracy guys out there, was a Grand Master, 33rd degree Grand Master Mason, which you can just Google that. Like, there it is right there for you. So who's he working for? It's not you. It's not the people. It was for his masters. And how many terms did he have? This motherfucker? Like 4 terms or something.
4 terms. The only president to ever have that. Well, we just, it was
look what he gave them. He gave them all the gold.
Yeah.
He gave them the gold.
Yep. Yeah, and then he began instituting policies after the war to basically expatriate all that gold back to Europe, back to his masters. And that's a really great part of Eustace Mullins' The Secrets of the Federal Reserve book about the City of London. And that to me, as far as I can tell, that is the head of the Hydra. That is where it all stems from. It all comes from there. They are the ones pulling the levers. They figured out that the Navy and the Army of the Crown wasn't enough to secure the world order, so they went on to secure the economic world order in their favor, and that's, as far as I can tell, that is kind of the nexus of power of all the banking apparatus.
And for those uninitiated in this particular rabbit hole, the City of London is a
country, good, yes,
a country unto itself.
Yes,
as is the Vatican and as is Washington D.C. And these 3 pillars, these are the 3 points of the triangle, and to which we are all enslaved. And I'm going down the rabbit hole at the moment of the birth certificate, the bonded slavery, and how we've all been completely.
Yes.
It's maritime.
Is that Jordan Maxwell? Is that who?
I'm following a guy, his work. I learned about all of this at a Bitcoin meetup with another Bitcoin podcaster. His name is La Par on Twitter. And he started telling us about how he was reclaiming his sovereignty, sovereignty, like back to who you're working for. Yes. How he's reclaiming his status as a man. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he spent like 45 minutes just blowing me out of the water. So I've started following a guy called Peter Stone, who's done some very deep dives onto this. And you're getting pulled into all different directions, and you start having to learn about the law. And I've found a copy of Black's Law Dictionary, so I can start looking at the actual definition of words, not the definition of words that we've been, you plebeians can have your own dictionary, but we're going to use this one, which is an actual lawful dictionary, and how they've hyphenated words to change the definition of them. And it's like there's so much.
Have you got the one where they on any bill or any debt you owe, it's in capital letters because you're a corporation? Yeah. Okay. So.
God, yeah. Your legal fiction. Yes. Which So I've great little books to pick up. Meet Your Straw Man. People
Me?
should read
Okay,
that.
I'm gonna write that down.
It's a short read, but it's very compact and very concise, and explains all of this. Uh, yeah, this is a real deep one, but the idea that we all know tax is theft.
Yes.
That isn't just
Yeah.
a glib kind of libertarian like catch line. It is theft of the highest order. It's immoral. It absolutely shouldn't exist. Tax
Well,
abuse.
and every time the IRS is probed on where it says they have the right to exact a federal income tax, there is no answer. I mean,
Mhm.
they're just doing it through violence and at the threat of prison. They have no legal claim to take your money, but basically, if you want to see your family again, you're going to give it to us. Is kind of the arrangement. They have no authority to do it. We can't get the courts to overturn it because they're complicit in the whole racket. Because the second the income tax stops, their jobs stop. So, and who knows what nice donations and outings and luxuries of life are being enjoyed on someone else's tab for them as well. So the whole system is rotten because it has to be to perpetuate itself
Mhm.
because it doesn't have a moral or legal claim to really exist.
Certainly doesn't. And that's why we are all drawn to Bitcoin. Right.
Yes.
We're going to
And
have to start closing this one down, my friend.
yeah,
It's been a great
no,
rip.
no problem.
Let's leave it talking about Sovreign again because this,
Yes.
the project seems like a great one. Getting businesses to understand the need. We've got similar guys over here in the UK. They
Yep.
bridge to Bitcoin. They're a great bunch of guys doing great work. This is the only way we make this transition, right? Like you were saying earlier, it's great to have stacked, but if you can't use it, like how do we transition out of this? Like selling it for fiat just is just the worst. And but if we don't do the work, if we don't get businesses to understand why they need it, it's not just to
Yes.
accommodate us crazy Bitcoiners. It's like, no, this is going to save your company. This is going to save your life going forward. You won't need to sell or close your business in 5 years' time.
And
You can still
and
be
for
operating in 50 years' time and pass it down. But let's bring back family generational businesses.
yes.
Let's make
Yes.
that a thing.
Yeah. And some of these guys, as someone who lives this firsthand and sees the actual problem, sees these guys, they're second generation, they're third generation, and they're like, I'm going to disgrace my family and I'm not going to be able to carry this on. I'm making the same stuff. We're doing the same quality. We just can't. And it's like they don't realize that it's just inflation accelerating underneath them. And that's what's eroding their business. And yes, the goal of Sovereign is to start getting these people to see that reality, to start helping them out of the situation. And to your point, I listened to your podcast, the Bridge with Bitcoin folks, and our goal is that we just want to be a service. We want to be available. Sometimes it's hard to orange pill people and get them set up on things. It takes time. It takes personal effort. And yeah, I'm sure for your mom or your dad or your brother or your family, you're willing to do that. But sometimes I have a couple buddies who are, hey, I know so and so, they're at this company. They'd want to figure out why they need this, but I don't want to do the legwork. I'm not as experienced as you or your team. You take it. And that's what we're hoping, is that we can be a resource for people that in the Bitcoin community. Ultimately, our people are kind of outside the Bitcoin community, pre-coiners maybe, or just people that need to be brought into the space. So we don't need to orange pill the people currently here, the businesses. We don't need to go orange pill Bitcoin magazine. So we're trying to find people in the community making stuff, may not know about this, and just get them referred into us. We'll do the heavy lifting. We'll get them up to speed. If they want to start custodying, we'll provide them options for that. We'll get them financial planning. We'll do budgets with them. We'll sit down. We'll do all this stuff. And just like Bridge to Bitcoin, just like Sovreign, I hope there's 15 of these companies, 20 of these companies, 1,500 of these companies where there's just we're everywhere and we're out there, we're pounding the pavement, we're telling people about this, and we're just saying we're here to help. We're going to get you set up because this is ultimately the only way for your business to survive, unless you're selling like cocaine or something and your margins are 1,000%. You're going to struggle to survive, and let's make sure you do, because we want these products. We want these services potentially, whatever it's you're offering, or maybe your business is not really feasible, and that's a separate conversation that might need to be had for a lot of companies out there. But that is ultimately the goal, is to get out there, get these people positioned for the future, and be a resource for anyone to be available. That, hey, someone wants to learn about this, someone wants to get set up on this, I have a place that I'm comfortable. There's people that deeply understand this, that have the expertise. We have 25 to 30 consultants available on call for any sort of need you may have as a business. I would say outside of tax, we probably wouldn't feel comfortable with that, where we can get you set up with whatever you need. And we're here to help and here to be a resource for companies that want to make it into the future. So
excellent, mate. Well done. And thank you for opting out of Fiat and into Bitcoin, and putting your energy there. But I think the final question. So if you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to and why?
Yes, I knew this question was coming. I thought about it quite a bit and went through sort of the do you get the guy that affects everyone, someone closer to home? And I think I settled on I really want to give it to my dad. And my dad owns Bitcoin. He understands sort of the concept of, hey, this is a good thing to have in my portfolio because they keep making more dollars and they don't make any more of this. But as we were talking about earlier, he is one of the people who just can't accept that everything he's learned, that the establishment, the narratives, the so-called experts, the renowned authors, the renowned so-and-so, these are all plants. These are all people that are there to sell you a narrative to further the legitimacy and to benefit the state. And my dad is an amazing man. He's had a profound effect on my life. One of the best, most faithful, honest, just wonderful stand-up gentleman I've ever met. And I love him more than anything, and we have a great relationship. And it's like this one thing, like if I could just get him to take the orange pill beyond sort of just the monetary truth of infinite dollars, finite Bitcoin, to start understanding these other things, and even be able to sort of foster more discussions on that, and see that awakening, I guess, in his life, it would just mean so much to me, and it would be so wonderful. So yeah, I'll leave it on a sentimental note for that. So
yeah, love it. Well,
yeah.
How can people find you or Sovreign? What's the best way? What's the best way to reach out?
So up until this point, I've been a NIM on NOSTR only. If people want to go find me, I'm Plebe Anon on NOSTR. So now I'm doxed to the world. Many people know who I am in the Bitcoin community, but that's me. I am NOSTR only, and Sovreign.io, Sovreign.io is our website. That's where all our resources, you can jump into webinars. We have a great ebook there that I'm really proud of. I mean, it truly is one of the most impressive pieces of Bitcoin literature I've seen out there. It's wonderful. It's very well done. It's easy to hand to businesses or people. So feel free to check out the website and Sovreign.io on Twitter as well. Our founder, Daniel Frank, at Daniel Frank on Twitter as well, would be some great followers for those looking for X or Twitter follows. And you can follow me, Brandon Karpeles, as I said, on NOSTR, Plebe Anon. And I will also be updating my LinkedIn here soon. So to the extent that Facebook for Business excites you, you can reach out to me on that as well. So,
so how do you spell the NOSTR?
It's PLEBIANON.
ANON. Right,
So
okay.
a combination of
so like
anonymous.
plebeian, but plebeianon. Right, okay, got it.
Yeah, yes. So
yes.
a clever portmanteau of minimal thinking. So yeah.
Excellent. All right, I'll link to all of that, and appreciate you coming on the show, man. It's been
Thanks,
it's been
Daniel.
a fun
Really
one.
appreciate it. It was an honor to speak to you. You've guided me in a lot of direction for not just Bitcoin, but personal stuff as well. And really appreciate you and your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Have a good week.
Yeah. You too. Thanks.